Hello, everyone. We'll call to order the Kennedale City Council regular meeting, April the 18th, 2023, 5:30 p.m. And we are at City Hall Council Chambers at 405 Municipal Drive. Members of the public may join in person or access a live feed at www.cityofkennedale.com/videos. However, the virtual option does not allow for public comment. To address the Kennedale City Council regarding an agenda item, please submit a request to speak form, which are right here on this table over here. Before our meeting begins, speakers, you'll be allotted 3 minutes and must limit your comments to the subject indicated on the form and should address the Kennedale City Council as a whole rather than individual members or staff. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, the Kennedale City Council reserves the right to adjourn into executive closed session at any time during the meeting to seek legal advice from the city attorney on any item posted on the agenda. Madam Secretary, may I have a roll call, please?
Rocky Gilly, place one.
Present.
Brad Horton,
Here.
Kenneth Michaels,
Here.
Austin Degenhart,
I'm here.
James Connor.
Accounted for.
Mayor Joplin, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll just go ahead and dive in. We have several work session items today. The first one is to address the Winding Creek resident flooding issue behind the Kennedale Junior High. And this was submitted to be on the agenda by Councilman Degenhart. So if you want to kick this off for us.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's been brought to my attention and I believe council's attention as a whole. Yep, that there's been flooding from some of the KISD property that is impacting some of our local residents and neighbors. So I just wanted to bring this as a work session item to talk through what can be done to alleviate the water runoff and flooding concerns that are impacting our community. So I'd like to open it up to just talk through the issue at hand and the options on the table.
Let me ask the attorney something real quick. I have a couple of requests to speak in regard to this matter. Would it be okay to have them come up and speak now so we can get a little more information from them? Okay. All right, so I have a request to speak from Dustin Verona. If you'll come up and give your address.
Good now? Okay, cool. First thing I'd like to say is I appreciate the council for all the previous discussions and everything. Not a huge talker, so I'm going to try to read. I've got a couple questions and statements. I'm not sure if those questions can just be answered when it goes to open discussions. Not sure how that works. So I'll just shoot it from the hip, and then if I say something that doesn't belong, I'm sure I'll get corrected. So the first question I've got is there a city ordinance or code violation for water runoff that affects personal property that can be enforced by the city? As I don't believe it's necessary for wasting the school administration's time and taxpayers' money for a court setting. That would be my first question. I don't know if we answer at the end or.
We'll chat about it during the work session.
Okay, sounds good. Second thing is that I believe KISD knew there was a problem when it was brought to the school board and city council members with the prior Kennedale administration and city council meetings by my neighbor John DeSilva years ago. Remedy measures taken by the school district by digging a trench in good faith shows two things. One, there is a problem, and two, they took responsibility at the time. I believe this action also includes maintaining the issue. Kind of disgusts me to want residents like myself to vote in a $1 million plus bond, spending tax dollars to print signs to vote on this bond and installing them around the city. Funny, one line item is they want to spend who knows how much to put in a turf field that they play on 6 to 8 times a year. And they included drainage money for that field when they have a draining issue, flooding houses 50 yards away. We plead that the city helps with the construction and oversees all phases so that it gets done correctly. We also ask the city that they help in maintaining the area if possible, if that is the only thing holding up the correction project moving forward. If the bond passes, this is another question I have. If the bond passes, can the new permits or inspections required by the city, such as the football field drainage project being placed in a holding pattern, can it be placed in a holding pattern if there is an existing problem documented? The last thing I had is, I don't know if this new flood report has become available since the last city council meeting. Maybe y'all can advise on that. That's all I got. I really appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you. Do you have a copy of the new flood map?
I do not. I was
Okay.
just wondering if it came out, because last time I was here, it hadn't come out yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John Silva? And again, just state your address.
Good evening. John De Silva, address is 311 Autumnwood Court. And I'm resident at Whining Creek Estates. I wanted to see if it'd be possible, just to start off, if I could play a video, just so everyone here kind of sees the magnitude of what we're really dealing with, before I go on with my questions and what I have to say. Would that be okay?
Sure, as long as it's within 3 minutes.
Is there somewhere I can plug this in to?
We won't count this part against you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would y'all prefer that I talk first? Maybe we can play the video once it's
That's a
done.
good idea.
Okay. So I want to start off by thanking the council for hearing us today. I want to thank the city manager for the meeting we had, what was it, last month, and the engineer we had a plan, and I just want to say that I completely understand the city's position on that. So I've been dealing with this for, I don't know, 8 years now. And it seems like every time this gets brought up, there's new council members, new city managers, new boards, what have you. And I feel like all along the city's been doing their part to kind of play a role and try to figure out a solution. And in my honest opinion, I feel like the school board's really just kind of stonewalling this whole process. It's constantly, oh, we'll get back to you. We'll see what happens. Let me talk to so-and-so. We never hear back. I think of recently the emails that have gone out, I don't think we've received one response from a single board member. Nothing. They're silent. They don't care. But it is an issue. As a taxpayer, it kind of stinks, you know? You work hard, you do what you do, you pay your taxes, and, 3 or 4 times a year, oh, here we go. We have these flooding events that completely wreck our yards. I've personally spent over $10,000 of my own money putting in drains, retaining walls, sidewalks, gullies to help alleviate this problem. And over the years, this continues to get worse. And as Dustin mentioned, back in 2018, 2017, the school district did dig a ditch or ravine. And when they did that, it actually alleviated the problem. Things got good. But over time, things erode, the ditch fills in, it's not maintained. And now the events are becoming worse and worse over time. So, and to Dustin's point too, he brought up the proposal, which the idea that the district knows about this issue, refuses to do anything with it. But yet they want to sit and propose to raise our taxes so they can put in drainage and a nice pretty football field with turf, new lighting. So that way they have a new pretty shiny object to attract people. But yet, like Dustin said, 50 yards away, this is what's happening. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this video so you can kind of get an idea of the magnitude of water that we're getting in these events. Now, if it were just a little water, I'd understand, but as you can see, this is not a little water. This is all the water from the roof of the building at the middle school, from the field, from the parking lot, all gets funneled right here. And there are many more videos that I could play. I've got, I don't know, 20 plus videos of instances just like this. And we can't get anywhere. And I'm of the opinion, yes, some mistakes were made a long time ago, and we can point fingers all day long. But the fact of the matter is, as homeowners, there's nothing we can do to fix this. This is the school's property, and the school is the only one that has the ability to fix this, whether it be with the help of the city or whoever, but this is the school's property. They are the only ones that can fix this. And with that, I guess I'm done.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this topic? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and open it up for discussion, conversation with the council. And since Councilman Degenhardt, since you put it on for the agenda, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank you guys for coming out and bringing this to our attention. This is the second meeting that we've talked about it. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of what can be done, I'd like to ask our city manager what he's been able to find out as far as avenues and recourses that we as a city have to bring this to resolution, if any avenues or options have been explored in the past.
There has been options. However, at the time, the city has no easement between the two properties. Between the homeowners that have that butt up to the school district. There's no easement, there's no city easement whatsoever. At this point, there has been some type of watershed study done by Shield on our behalf. That study has been shared with the school district and the homeowners as well, for what we believe the problem is and what a solution could be if we move forward with it. Obviously, with that study, it also comes a cost, which is at this point, with the city not having an easement, we have no right to be on the property or force any work to be done to correct the issue.
So thank you for that. So with that being said, if there was in fact previously a drainage ditch or something put in place to mitigate the flood issues, and it has not been maintained. Is that something that the city has um, the power to enforce the maintenance of? For example, if there's a house in the neighborhood and the grass is over 24 inches in the yard, the city after notice can go out there and mow the grass and then find the individual, and eventually get to the point where a lien is placed on the property. Similar to light shed coming off the property, take Magnolia. Recently, we've had to go through that. That's, you know, something that's impacting other citizens that we've had to take active steps to correct. In this situation, there's clearly a tangible impact to our citizens. Do we as a city have an ordinance on the books or any other means of recourse to enforce the drainage area be maintained?
I think that's an outstanding question. And I want to refer it to our city attorney if he can help us with that. I'm not aware if we have a code in place at this point.
I'm not aware of a particular ordinance that would prohibit this sort of, flooding activity. Not sure exactly what you're envisioning in terms of an ordinance.
Well, just as we have an ordinance for nuisance light, right? Light pollution leaving an apartment complex, for example, or a commercial property that impacts citizens. When construction on a property occurs, it's the due diligence of the developer and contractor and owner of that property to ensure that all flood water is either contained on site or disposed of in a manner that complies with the TECQ environmental procedures and is directed into a rain catchment system or stream or other waterway. And in this situation, it's very clear that that is not what is happening. And so I guess the question at hand for me right now is, if we don't have an ordinance on the books, I would like to, if council agrees, look at putting one on the books so that we can deal with this issue directly and perhaps future issues that arise. And it could be as a component of the UDC update and comp plan update that we're working through, or it could be a standalone. But if there have been attempts to negotiate an amicable solution to this and we're being stonewalled, I think that we as city council and protecting the interest of our citizens need to step in. Now, with that being said, I do see members of KISD here, and I would love to give them the opportunity to speak to this issue from their perspective, because again, we hear one side of things when a citizen comes before us, and there are two sides to every argument. So if willing, I would welcome you guys to the podium to be able to speak on your behalf as well.
And I got one more thing real quick to the city attorney. In regards to that, if there's a public safety component to this, is there something we could do to neglect that from continuing to happen? Would we have the capability of stepping in and correcting that?
I can't preclude that, but generally flooding issues between two adjoining property owners is a private matter between the two property owners. And the city generally doesn't get involved. If your neighbor is flooding your property, that's a civil lawsuit between the two property owners where one will sue the other one for changing the flow of surface water. And if the upstream party has improperly changed the flow of water, then under Texas law, they're generally responsible for the damages that they cause downstream. We as a third party, as a city, we don't have standing in that dispute between two private individuals, between the two owners of the property. So generally speaking, the city wouldn't get involved in that. If it was a drainage easement that or a drainage pipe or a culvert or something that we owned, we're responsible for maintaining it and keeping it up. If you recall, I had occasion to look at the plat of this particular property, and the drainage easement was actually, the city made sure the developer maintained responsibility for that particular, for all the drainage and the easements on that property. And the city specifically said, we will not be responsible for maintaining that drainage and that related to the entire subdivision. So that, I mean, that was entered into back in 2005. So it's an old problem. And historically, there may have been things that have happened since then that I'm not aware of. I don't know what they are, but those are the things that two private property owners would resolve through litigation to determine whether somebody changed the flow of the water.
Does it matter what year that may have taken place? So you referenced to 2005.
I just
Uh,
noticed 2005 was when the plat was approved.
Okay.
Irvin, I'd actually like to take a little stab at that as well, if you could. You said between two private owners. What if one of those owners isn't so private? Isn't the school board a public company? They're not a private landowner.
Now, they're local government by definition, so yes.
Exactly. So it wouldn't be a private landowner. They would be somewhat of a privately held corporation, yes?
I probably misspoke by calling it between, I was using in a generic sense, two independent parties. They have to resolve it between themselves. And we as a third party, we're neither property owner one, we're neither property owner number two. Those two properties abut each other. It can be Coca-Cola, it can be, whoever owns it. It doesn't really,
Okay.
it's the property one, property two, they resolve that dispute between them. If we had owned one of the properties, we would be one of the parties involved in the dispute. So the public-private part really
Gotcha.
wasn't what I was trying to make.
Would someone from KISD like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Nelson. I'm the school district's attorney. I'm an attorney at the firm of Walsh Gallegos. We've been made aware of the homeowners' issues. I've seen the videos. Obviously, there's concern, and rightly so. I would say that the property was conveyed to the school district in 1976. The school was built, it burned down, it was rebuilt. To my knowledge, the school hasn't, to the city attorney's point, changed the flow of water from when the homes were built. I imagine that when the homes were built, there was a drainage study done. I would hope so, that it went through the planning and permitting process with the city to address the fact that it's right next to a creek in a flood zone, and to address the water that would be flowing there from the school's property that had been there before. I think the school district has been open to solutions. The point was made that there's no easement there. I think the school district has offered to grant an easement to the city there to mitigate issues. We've offered to allow the city to come onto the property to address the issues. To the point that this is a public entity, we are bound to use public school funds for public school purposes. To the extent we use it for a private purpose that benefits a private party, we could have constitutional prohibitions there unless there's a public purpose that benefits the school district. And I know that's hard to hear, but that's the issue that we're dealing with as well. If there's any solutions the city can offer, the city does have a 15-foot drainage easement along the back of these homeowners' lots where the fence is that you see the water coming through. So if there's options that the city can propose, I think the school district has been very open to hear it. So I hate to hear that we've been stonewalling. We just need a solution that works for the homeowners, for the city, for the school district, because the extent that work needs to be done out there, they want to do it the right way and make sure they get a permit from the city to do the work, and that we don't unintentionally create other drainage issues, that we don't create a safety issue for kids with the trench out there. And maybe maybe redigging the trench is a way to alleviate the concerns. Maybe the trench would be better in another location. But I think that the school district is open to hearing any suggestions on how this can be addressed.
Thank you.
So can I kind of comment on that right quick?
You can comment. They don't have to answer, but you can certainly comment.
Great. Love comments.
But keep it if you can to the
Yes,
direction we
I am.
want,
Mhm.
we want this to go.
Oh, trust me, I am. So we've always been told that you can't mitigate the flow of water, and that's been told us by developments and or by our attorney for many different reasons, looking at developments and stuff like that. With this supposed, drainage easement that is there and them wanting to grant an easement to the city to, deal with this issue, does it work better for, I guess I would say that it would probably work out better for them so they don't have to maintain it and use public funds and public dollars to do that with. So I guess it would kind of work out better for them if they were to just grant us the easement and do it. But at the same time, I just don't understand why, if there is already a trench there, why can't they get somebody a public, why can't they just get some of their, people over there to clean it out, maintain it? And, so this doesn't happen, or, dig it a little bit deeper or something to that effect. I mean, from what it sounds like and from what I'm seeing on these videos, they haven't maintained their own structure to mitigate the flow of water. Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding? So my question would be is, if we're not supposed to mitigate the flow of water, why aren't you guys maintaining it? It's on your property. Just clean it out. It's not that difficult, I think.
Thank you. Want me to move around the, Councilman Gillett, do you have anything?
Instead of seeing a lot of funds spent on legal issues and lawsuits, why can't we just work together as two government bodies to address the problem as best we can? Maybe generally, good attorneys can make anything, almost anything, possible. Could it be that we have an interlocal agreement between the school district and us to share, can an easement and maintenance of an easement be shared?
That's certainly a possibility, but as I was watching that video, and that's the first time I've seen it, the water is flowing outside of where we have any easements. So
Right.
We would have to get another easement. And again, the law in Texas is pretty clear. If you alter the flow, you're responsible for the resulting damage.
Right.
So I think historically, and I haven't always been in this chair for this city, but historically, I think the city has been adverse to doing anything that would alter the flow of that water for fear of incurring the resulting liability for having done that. So we would have to enter into some kind of arrangement where the two parties agree basically to indemnify each other,
Mhm.
which unfortunately is specifically prohibited by the Texas Constitution. Governmental entities can't indemnify folks. So it has been a difficult problem to solve. Ultimately, the developer who built the property agreed, according to the paperwork I've reviewed, to maintain the drainage flow on that property. So that is the party that probably should be at the table, stepping forward to fix the problem that they either didn't fix at the time or have allowed to happen.
And I've heard, oh, pardon me, I've heard that entity is no longer an active business, or perhaps not even.
I don't know the answer to that question, but that, again, as the attorney for the school district mentioned, there's also prohibition against spending public funds
Right.
for private individuals.
Mhm.
So we again will have to address the issue. Is this a public need that is being addressed with public dollars? I mean, we have that constitutional prohibition. We can't spend the public dollars to enhance or improve an individual's private property. We'll have to figure away that. I haven't
Oh, okay.
particularly studied that problem today.
If, let's say, for example, what would be the legal situation if the city said to the school district, hypothetically, if you would remediate your drainage, then we would share costs and part of that cost with you. Would that change the liability on either party?
Well, I think it might, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can't rule it out.
And personally, I mean, I just want to see the thing fixed, right? And I understand, the city might incur some liability. But I would be willing to entertain a proposal to see us obtain, if the school district would cooperate and obtain an easement, and we do the right thing. Now that's based on whether we could afford it. That's based on a lot of things, but I would certainly entertain a proposal. It's been, you know, we're hearing it's been 8 years. You know, this is a problem. The other thing is the concept of sovereign immunity. Where unless you, and this is a layman's explanation, sir, so please correct me, but unless a city maliciously performs an action, they can claim sovereign immunity. Would that not apply to this case if the school district allowed us access to the easement and we did some remediation ourselves?
You would think that, wouldn't you? There's an exception to the immunity clause. Actually, the Tort Claims Act is what grants a waiver of immunity, and it grants a waiver of immunity when the governmental entity uses motor-driven equipment. So if we used any motor-driven equipment to modify the land, we would lose our immunity likely under that scenario.
So it has to be shovels or horses or mules then, right? No, but seriously, there has to be a way to resolve this. We can't be the only city in Texas that has this issues. Drainage issues are rampant in Kennedale, every other city. And I do know anecdotally that sometimes cities step in and maybe exceed, they do things that they're not strictly liable to do. And I would just ask that if we could work together through the city administration, KISD, let's come up with something that we can do and to fix this problem, even if it might open us up a little bit for some future action. It just needs to be done. It's just wrong. What's occurring is just absolutely wrong. And I will also use this tidbit here to say, when we start looking at future development, we need to remember this. We need to remember Winding Creek, Pennsylvania. We need to remember the flooding of Beacon Hill. This is where slipshod engineering and rubber stamping of engineering plans, this is what it leads to.
Thank you, Councilman Gilly. Before we get to the last two councilmen, we have the KISD Superintendent, Mr. G here that would like to speak.
Thank you. To address what you said, Mr. Gilly, we did have that agreement and we were going to allow the city onto our property. And we had many meetings between myself, Mr. Hull, and Christian about that and allowing y'all to come on to remediate this situation. We even had an interlocal agreement drawn up by Ms. Nelson that was rejected by your attorneys. And I was told that y'all wanted no part of this. So we were headed down that path. We thought we were headed down that path. I got back from spring break and we had a meeting scheduled with them on Monday. I thought we were going to address that with you at that time. Yes or no? Yes. And then when I show up to the meeting, it's off because the city's attorney said no. So we were working towards what you're suggesting and it was rejected on the city's end, not our end. Thank you.
Daryl?
I'll have a plot thickens.
Yes, that is correct. The contract that he sent had one, pulled all liability, all sort to the city as a whole. That was not an acceptable contract. If we're gonna work together, that doesn't mean the city takes all liability. If we go out and we do that, and the concept of our agreement was the city comes out with city employees, city equipment, and help clear and clean that area. It was not in the intent to come in and change the total flow of that. We do that, we do take the liability as our city attorney has stated. That's the reason why that contract was not signed or even brought to you, because of that. And it's not our easement.
So I'm to understand that this was a contract that was drawn up by KISD, not our attorney. It
That's
was
correct.
drawn up by their attorneys, and they wanted to go ahead and put all the liability onto the city and them have none.
That's correct.
So even though it's on their property,
That's
and
correct.
they are the ones who are creating the mess, in my assessment.
I believe that.
So I would have rejected that contract too.
Is this something from here going forward? Sorry, the pollen. Now that we kind of are at this point that we could have our city manager and the superintendent of KISD from here going forward to work this out? Is that something that we can ask for? Well, I mean, what I'm hearing is that you're wanting us to assume all the liability. So is that? Okay, so you're open for that. Perfect. We have a couple more councilmen that haven't had the opportunity to speak, and I definitely want to give everybody an opportunity tonight. Councilman Horton?
Thank you, ma'am. So a couple things. Number one, can the attorneys get together and mutually work something out where we can come to an agreement? Just gonna throw that out there. And secondly, I would be in favor of some sort of ordinance going down, but I don't think that's going to give these folks the relief that they need. And this has gone on for 8 years. And, you know, I don't know who's to blame, whatever, but let's get this fixed. And, you know, whatever we need to do that, if we have to assume some liability, then let's assume some liability. And, you know, I think we can make a pretty strong case that that is a public safety issue. I mean, my goodness gracious, their backyard's underwater. And I mean, half expect you to start building an ark soon, you know, with that. But, you know, I would just say, let's please work together with them and let's explore an ordinance, but do something to get them some.
Great, thank you. Councilman Michaels?
I think my question is the only thing I really have on this is the hydraulic studies and everything. I've never seen the final plats to this area. Their attorney talked about a utility easement on, I'm assuming on the south side of the property. And the builders responsible for that, or was that ever turned over to the city? And my other question would be is when does this stop? If we do this one, then there's another issue going on in another subdivision that has the same thing. Do we need to take care of that? And then what about drainage problem that we have where the water's flowing off to the street into the ditch, but the ditch is overflowing and then going into residential houses? So where does it stop? I mean, we don't have enough money to sit there and fix all the drainage problem. So, I mean, I would like to see the actual final plat and see actually who owns that easement. If it's I don't know if does it have an HOA? No HOA? Yeah, that's my deal. I said, I need a little bit more information before I make a decision on anything, but. Okay. Okay. All right, yeah, I need a little bit more information before I make a decision on anything, because like I said, there's other issues in the city that has the same problems. And if we fix one, then we're gonna have to fix the other. And then we'll have to fix the other and then the other. So, I mean, this will be a reoccurring deal So I just need more information before I make any decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
One last thing. Would there be any ability to get the county's cooperation in some of these issues also? I just throwing that out there is, if that's something that we could, maybe draw on some help from engineering, maybe some sort of, flood control grant, anything like that, if there might be something else available.
Thank you. All right, no more. We're going to go ahead and move on to work session item 2. Discussion of plans for landfill expansion with Waste Connections and Weaver Consultants. This was put on the agenda work session by Councilman Gilly. So I will kick this off to Mr. Gilly first.
If you live along Glinda, you probably got a thing in the mail about 3 weeks or a month ago now, talking about a proposal to expand the solid fill waste landfill, sort of across the opposite side of the road from Linda. And at the time I was approached by some people that received the letters and asked if I could help facilitate not a public hearing, but just a public meeting to talk about what the plans were. Reached out to Weaver Consultants and Waste Connections, and have had a very favorable, engaged response from them. And they're here tonight to explain what the proposed change is. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Bartles.
And this is, to be clear, this is not the dump mountain. This is the landfill, right?
I differentiate. There's the stinky landfill on the north side. Okay, this is not that one. And then there's the one that catches on fire every 2 or 3 years. This is the one that catches on fire every 2 or 3
Okay,
years.
it's not the stinky mountain.
Thank you, Councilman Gilly, for the invite, first of all, and Madam Mayor, council members, city manager, Madam Secretary. My name is Gary Bartles. I'm the region engineer with Waste Connections. I live at 432 Paloma Street in Weatherford, Texas. I'm here to introduce to you our consultant and our team. We brought with us our professional engineer from Weaver Booz, Chuck Marsh, as well as our district manager Elijah Vandegrift, our site manager Roberto Canales, and our hauling manager Abel Marino as well. And so first of all, we appreciate the opportunity to just introduce to you what we're doing. You all probably are familiar with our facility, about a mile south on Dick Price Road on the west side of Dick Price, and just on the very edge of the city of Kennedale, in the kind of the south tier of the city. The facility's been there for a number of years. We are currently have an application in front of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to expand the facility, increase the size of the facility primarily to the west, and actually 100% to the west between the existing facility and what is Village Creek. We've gone to FEMA and received approval in the form of a CLOMR with the city of Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and FEMA to relocate the floodway and the floodplain of Village Creek with no net impact upstream, downstream, side stream. So we're excited to share that with you. We're proposing to increase the volume about 8.5 million cubic yards and add somewhere between 7 and 10 years of life to the facility. So with, we understand there's a number of questions, concerns regarding traffic flow, elevation, fires, site operations, and so forth. We'll look forward to answering those questions. We're going to present some of the information to you. Chuck will run through a few slides, then we'll open that up to questions. But we're just trying to frame the overall expansion for you, what it's going to look like. where that's going to be, and then again, open up for your questions so that we can help introduce to you what it is we plan to do, the things that we have and continue to do in the neighborhood, and again, try to bring as much of that information to you all as possible. So I'm going to turn it over to Chuck for right now, and then we'll be back up for questions after.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Chuck Marsh, 6420 Southwest Boulevard in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm a civil and environmental engineer with Weaver Consultants Group, and I'm here on behalf of Waste Connections. We were the consulting engineer who put together the most recent application to expand the Fort Worth C&D landfill. As was discussed earlier, I'll use different language, but the other MSW landfill is located roughly northwest. If you're looking on the screen, right across Village Creek of C&D landfill. C&D stands for construction and demolition, and that's what this facility accepts. Construction demolition waste, that's your bricks, your shingles, wood, drywall, inert materials. Anytime something is built, something is torn down, it ends up at preferably a C&D landfill. This facility has been in operation since 1997. It has been modified approximately 4 times. It currently operates under TCEQ permit 1983D. It was modified in 2002, 2017, and most recently in 2021. This particular application proposes to expand the facility to the west towards Village Creek. So on the left of your screen is the permitted completion plan. This is what it's going to look like when it is all finished. On the right is what's proposed, and you can see the shape and form is generally the same with an expansion towards Village Creek on the west. From a drainage perspective, one of the main things we evaluate whenever we do landfills is the surface water drainage. In this particular case, things flow from southeast to northwest towards Village Creek, as you might expect. It's the main artery through Kennedale's, Fort Worth, Arlington. It takes in a lot of drainage. And as Mr. Bartles alluded, most of the land in the west portion of this facility where we're planning to expand was in floodplain and floodway. We received authorization from FEMA via a conditional letter of map revision to revise those floodplain limits and expand the facility to the west. This is our excavation plan. I can answer questions on it. It's a little technical, but the point of this was just to show that we are not proposing to go any deeper. We're staying the exact same bottom depth of the landfill that stays where it's at. We're just moving it to the west. From a liner system, this is a TCEQ permitted facility. It requires a liner. On the bottom of the landfill, we have in this area very, very dense clays. And so that's called an in situ liner. The physical properties of this material are such that you cannot force water through it at a degree that is considered anywhere near, let's say, concerning to TCEQ. It actually has qualities that are better than synthetic materials. So that's why there's no synthetic liner on the bottom. On the sidewall, either on the final cover system, which is the cap at the top, it will have a synthetic liner as well as some soils placed on top of it. From a land use perspective, where this facility is located in the middle in the white, you can see a cross-hatched area. That's the amount of floodplain that's currently in place in the area. The purple is industrial areas. These greenish yellow is open space for agricultural, and the orange is residential. So in the immediate vicinity, it's mostly open space and industrial with some residential scattered in between. I'm happy to take questions on this. I know it's difficult to read, so I'm not going to try and explain too much on this. This is a slide that indicates our traffic evaluation. One of the many other agencies we have to coordinate with, aside from TCEQ, is TxDOT. We have to demonstrate the availability and adequacy of the roads that access this facility. We did a traffic study that took into account current 2021 traffic counts for most roads in the area. We then attributed traffic that is destined for the landfill, put it all together, and we established what's called a level of service. Level of service is this column right here, LOS. And you can see a comparison of this level of service to the proposed level of service. Those numbers, letters, are the same with the exception of one road. What that shows is in the future, the level of service of these roads is only going to decrease in one instance. And that makes sense because the landfill is not proposing to put more traffic on the streets. It's just going to do that for a slightly longer time. With that, I'll take any technical questions from an operations standpoint. I'll probably defer those questions to those who are experts in the field, but any technical questions on the landfill expansion, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much. We'll go around the room, but I just have just a real high level question. As you see it from your perspective, what is the impact to Kennedale?
That's a good question. And from the perspective of Kennedale, being to the east, north, and south, not necessarily to the west, where most of this impact would be felt, the impact is negligible. The one impact I could see is that this is proposing to raise the maximum elevation 40 feet. Now, sounds like a lot. When you're standing next to a telephone pole, that seems pretty tall, but if it's a quarter mile away, it's pretty small. And from a perspective standpoint, that's about the level of site impact that this proposal will have on Kennedale proper.
Okay, thank you so much.
I got a question. Can you explain a little bit more on the traffic detail that you did? I wasn't able to look at the numbers. I don't have it in my packet. Did you do a daily traffic count? Are you projecting that you have a different traffic flow coming off of Anglin or Wilson or someone else?
So what we utilize for our background traffic, it's called AADT, Annual Average Daily Traffic. Those are readily available either from TxDOT or from the North Texas Council of Governments. They do manual traffic counts on almost every road they maintain, which conveniently takes care of almost every road, every main road that is utilized to access the Fort Racine landfill. So we take that background information and then we assume a worst case scenario. What's the heaviest day you're going to get? Let's double it. We're going to assume that many trucks are on every one of these roads. We don't even distribute them. Say, okay, if we got 100 trucks, 5 go here, 10 go here. We just say 100 trucks on every road to get what is our maximum impact that this facility could have on the area roadways. And then we evaluate those using AASHTO's level of service calculations and capacity analysis. They used to call it the Green Book. It's now blue, but it's still called the Green Book. I don't know why. But we utilize that information to generate our level of service.
Do you have any plans on having the second entry into the landfill?
So the entrance is going to change, but there's only going to be one. Currently, you can see my cursor. The landfill office is right here, and so is the current entrance. The entrance is going to move to the north. Now, it should be noted that that's the currently permitted condition of where that's already been approved. We're not proposing to change that again. It was moved in 2021, and we're keeping it where it's at in 2023.
So all traffic will continue to go down Dick Price?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Can you go back to the traffic chart? And I can't read it either. What are the roads that are affected? I mean, obviously Dick Price, but are there others on there?
Yes, ma'am. We've got Dick Price Road north of the facility, split it to Dick Price Road south of the facility, Everman, Kennedale, Anglin, Shelby, Averett.
Okay, what was the last one?
Averett?
Averett, okay. Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start with Councilman Connor. Let me start with Councilman Gilly.
No, I'll go ahead and start. So I have a couple of questions. I understand that, you just stated that you received a conditional or unconditional waiver from FEMA to remove the floodplain. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that going to affect anybody to your west?
No, sir. As Mr. Bartle said in his introduction, part of the study we had to do was indicate that there would be no impact to other property owners. And since we don't own both sides of Village Creek, that included the west side, the north side, the south side. We had to get Fort Worth approval for the north. We had to get the Johnson County's approval for the south. We had many entities looking at this and evaluating.
How did you come up with that evaluation? What schematic was used to come up with that you're not going to impact the people to your west? How was that drawn up?
Sure. We use a program called HECRAS. It's a commonly used hydraulic evaluation systems published by the Corps of Engineers. It's multidimensional. What it does is it takes into account peak flow rates, which were generated by the current FIS. FIS is the countywide flood insurance study. And because this has a drainage area of several square miles, we take those flow rates that are generated from Phillips Creek. We modify the cross sections as we see them. So if we were to, for instance, take a cross section that were just to go across this area, if you can see my cursor, we would model that in both the permitted and the proposed condition in the same location. And we would modify our geometry. Then we would reanalyze the floodplain to determine if the velocities increase. We cannot create erosive velocities where erosive velocities did not occur before. We are not allowed to increase the floodplain elevation. We are not allowed to increase at all, not even a 0.1 foot increase of floodway. And we are also required to publish our intent to change this in the newspaper.
Okay. Earlier you alluded to that this is all inert information or all inert stuff like wood, shingles, basically no trash, I guess you would state. So if I knock down a 1943 house and I throw it all in the back of a, truck and want to drive it out there and just dump it in that land, is that okay?
I'm gonna kick that over to folks who deal with that a lot more than me.
Okay.
So I'll touch down on that a little bit. The federal regulations allow for what's called a residential exemption. That basically allows you and me as homeowners to, for example, if you throw in your trash, you can throw a bottle of Drano in your trash. You can't do that as a business owner of any kind, whether you're a contractor or otherwise. So there are some exemptions for you as a homeowner. You have a general responsibility, but yes, there are, you can do most of what you want to do by federal law.
The reason I'm asking that, and I know a lot of people would be like, that's a stupid question. It's actually not.
I get it.
Lead paint, asbestos, those are inert objects as well, and inert things that can go into a landfill if you're blithely unaware of the simple fact that you're going to be putting there, or that it was even there to begin with. And if it rains, those rains are going to put that into your water system because of the runoff, even though there is a liner down there.
So part of what Chuck was sharing with you in the excavation plan is the general shape and geometry of a facility. So it's essentially shaped like a bowl, right? To protect against exactly what you're concerned about, and that is the accidental release of any impact or contact water that may incidentally contact the homeowners, whatever, right? The vast majority of that, what comes in there isn't from a homeowner, so it's a really small percentage, but regardless of that, that liner system, the 4 feet of clay, and the shape of the bottom of that is completely intended to contain and control any of those concerns that you're referring to. On top of that, on a weekly basis, we're required to cover with a minimum of cover any open waste with a minimum of 6 inches of clean soil unmixed with other material. And after 180 days, if we're inoperable in that area, we're required to put another 6 inches. So essentially, we enclose in an envelope that material that we place there. We're also required to control the stormwater at the area that we're placing waste, so that we don't get run off the facility into the stormwater and so forth. We monitor that stormwater. We have a separate stormwater permit in addition to the stormwater management plan that we have with the solid waste plan. So we monitor that water. We sample that water for heavy metals and other things on an annual basis. Make sure that we aren't negatively impacting the surrounding area. So by its very design and structure, and then the materials that it makes up, it's essentially encapsulating the material.
Okay, I would just want to make sure that, Village Creek does run through Kennedale, quite a lot of Kennedale, and I just want to make sure the downstream is not impacted in any way environmentally. Another question is this.
Just real quick. There are upstream and downstream groundwater monitoring stations as a part of this facility that do monitor for all manner of things. Like I said, both upstream and downstream towards Village Creek.
Okay, thank you. And just another question. I'm 6 foot tall. Okay, How big is this thing gonna get? Because about 10 years ago, the one that's right up the road a little bit, it was a lot smaller and now it's a lot bigger. I swear if I walk, where I live not even a quarter mile from it. And I literally walk out my front door and it looks like I have the Rocky Mountains on my left-hand side. So am I gonna see the Appalachian Trail too?
Well, what I can say is that this application is essentially going to increase it by 40 feet at the maximum elevation. And the sides really essentially are going to be very similar. It's just that the top got wider. So the geometry carried up the peak elevation a little bit. But as Chuck mentioned before, if you, that elevation is getting further away from you. So in essence, it's not going to look much, if any, different. It's fractionally different from whatever your perspective is, unless you're standing right next to it.
Yeah.
Then
Okay. I don't have any further questions or concerns about this. Would defer to the smarter person or people in the room, those of us with degrees in this field. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Degenhart.
I really don't have anything after reading through the 4 volumes of permit amendments. There's quite a bit of good information in here. So, you know, my big thing is height increases visibility from everywhere. And so from an aesthetic perspective, that's the one negative that I can see, you know, increasing the size, as long as, of course, groundwater isn't being impacted. I have no comment on.
Councilman Michaels.
Sorry, what is the current elevation right now? Is it 600 foot?
oh. Not on here, I'm trying to recall, but I believe that this is about 80 feet of current permitted elevation. So there's about 80 feet to add to what's there.
So the elevation is 600 foot.
Um,
And then you're gonna go, I just wonder if y'all just competing with Fort Worth, who can be the tallest.
no, sir. We're-
Okay, I
that's-
don't have any questions. Thank you for your time.
I don't have a whole lot after reading through everything, other than I would just ask, and as we proceed, that as you stated, let's endeavor to keep the impact negligible to our city.
Councilman Gilling, wrap it up.
First off, I want to thank you all for coming, the information that you shared. Thank you so much. The concern, I live on Dick Price. I pick up a lot of trash, and most of it is construction debris from loads that are not secured. And I believe we had this conversation with you, Mr. Bartles, that if a load is not properly covered or secured, there's an additional fee. Do you charge an additional fee when they bring that in?
So we aren't a policing body, but we do have an obligation to obviously be good neighbors, but also assist in making sure that folks are properly securing their loads. So, I mean, I could share with the operations team here, they could explain to you what they do, but essentially it's just what you said. It's that, you know, we monitor each load that comes in, and if it's not properly secured, we essentially issue a fee.
Okay.
For
And,
that.
and
In an effort to deter that from occurring again, we don't send them back out on the road, because obviously then that would just ultimately encourage more debris on.
And the other onus is on the city, you know, to enforce covered loads, unsecured loads. And if that's something, Mr. Manager, that we could maybe look at a little bit more, that would be great. It's also a public hazard, metal debris, screws, nails, 2x4s, insulation, you know, it's a hazard. And Dick Price is a very dangerous road. And it's made more dangerous currently because of the closing of the through traffic on New Hope has redirected more traffic onto Dick Price, certainly more than occurred in 2021. So what is the time frame? When do you see this expansion occurring? What sort of time frame do you see?
These facilities are kind of just, they're construction sites that are continuing. So the actual physical expansion out to the west, we would anticipate portions of that to start this year. The portions that relate to the Clomer that we were talking about before, the modification of the floodway and the floodplain requires that we construct a berm and then we excavate the soil for the valley storage of Village Creek when it floods. So that's the first step. And so we'll be doing that portion out in the west closer to Village Creek this year. Beyond that, we will then be excavating soils inside of that berm over the next year or two. Those soils we use for cover. So we will use the vegetative soils to grow grass. We'll use the clay soils to cover and other things. So about 2 years from now, we will probably be actually constructing a new waste cell, but it's adjacent to what's already there. So we're just kind of tacking on to it. So in about 2 years, but it's not really going to change anything other than where the vehicles go to and from. They'll become less visible for a while as a result of this. So again, most of this activity will occur. Some of it will occur above the elevation that we're at, but most of this is really going to be tucked behind what current operations currently are.
And one last thing, let's say that residents within the certain distance, and I don't know what the distance is, if it's 200 feet or 400 or whatever it is for this case, if they objected to this expansion, how would they comment on that? Could you help direct them?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there's multiple phases to this whole process. It's multi-year in its efforts that started with the Clomer and modifying the floodway and floodplain. But we're currently in a position where we have submitted our application to the TCEQ, and they have gone through the application and deemed it administratively complete. That means they see all the pieces that they need to see. They're in the right places. They say the right things. They reference everything correctly. They're currently in the technical review, process. As part of that process, now they really dig deep into all the numbers, all the science, all the detail, and make sure that it fits the regulations and the intent of the regulations. We really haven't modified much from the last one, so from a technical perspective, it's really not that different at all. But so they'll go through that technical review and they will give us comments and we will respond to their comments. And all along this process, everything's published. It's available online. It's in the local library, so it's available for everyone. The links that we provided you are available and are provided to all the neighbors, the affected neighbors. We have to notice them. That's part of the process. So we will send out letters. We'll let them know where the information is and so forth. So they're part of that communication group. And then once the technical review is complete and the TCEQ deems it technically complete, then there's a public comment period. It offers the opportunity for public comment, in which case an individual or individuals or bodies such as yourselves could request a public meeting at that time or more. So it's a very transparent process in all ways, shape or form. It's just most people just aren't familiar with it. So we really appreciate the opportunity to come out here and share it with you. I mean, some of the things that people don't realize, of what our relationship has been. I mean, it's been a long-standing relationship between Waste Connections, was ISI, Progressive. It's all the same company, it's just different name today. But, back in 2008, ISI at the time and the city came together and formed an agreement that related to the public use of Dick Price Road and the roadways in the city of Kennedale. And at that time, agreed to compensate the city of Kennedale for every ton of waste that goes into the Fort Worth Sandy landfill. And, over those past 11, 12 years or so, we've contributed to the city about $1.4 million towards road maintenance and other, the right to utilize the roadways. We expect that that's going to be another 3.9 to $4 million or more throughout the life of this facility with this expansion. So we're excited, but silent partner in many ways. Most people just don't realize that we do that. We do some other things too that people may not realize that we do in relation to cleaning up the roadways and so forth. I'd really like Elijah to be able to explain the things that they do and to participate, and will continue to participate in the city if you can have just a minute.
Absolutely.
Elijah Vandergriff, stated the district manager for Fort Worth C&D. Yeah, I mean, we make numerous attempts to try to create and maintain a relationship with our local community. So one of the things that we do is we do bring in a third-party sweeper 3 times a week to help, whether it rains or not, help keep the roadways clear. We'll bring in our on-site sweeper as well, utilized by on-site staff, to help supplement that in the case that weather gets worse or continues on. We can continue to address that. That's the main one. We also have we're open site tours. We do a number of
Street cleanings, every day we send litter. We've cleaned out some illegal dump zones that are in the Everman Road.
Kennedale Everman Burleson,
Hold on.
world's longest road name.
We've done a little bit of cleanup there, but our intention is to be a good neighbor. And anywhere form, you can do that to help. My phone number is always on the outside of the landfill. Insurance you might have with the landfill or operations. My phone's always on.
And we always welcome anybody that would like to come visit the site as well. In fact, we're actually doing a heavy equipment rodeo June 3rd. If you got anybody would like to come out and do that, it's going to be a pretty fun event. So welcome to join us for that if you'd like.
Can my kids drive the heavy equipment?
We will have some light equipment. There's some mini excavators and whatnot. You got to watch out a little bit. They get a little crazy with it, but it's a total blast.
Yeah, and not in jest. We do that intentionally. We had a 6-year-old girl about 3 years ago that mastered that mini excavator in about 10 seconds. It was phenomenal to watch, and it's a lot of fun, but it helps showcase the really the safety aspect of our industry and what we try to do, and we honor our people that are safe to get an opportunity to perform in front of their family, friends, and others. But again, we want to just really thank you all for the opportunity to come out here, unless there's any other questions. But our goal is to be a partner in the neighborhood. Obviously, we also partner with your trash collection. That's a longstanding relationship. We very much appreciate that as well. And to Elijah's point, we're an open book. So if you or any of the public has interest in what we do, how we do it, where we do it, give us a call. We'd be happy to show you. We're very proud of that.
I appreciate it very much. I appreciate you all coming with your whole team. I would just say at the end, when the agreement was made with the city of Kennedale, that was a long time ago. And you can imagine the cost to maintain that road are now, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 or 6 times what they were when that agreement was made. So maybe, since you're going to be there for a while longer, maybe we can discuss that on the side, maybe.
We appreciate that. I believe we're the only ones that are contributing, but we appreciate that.
Okay.
Right? We understand.
Yeah, thank you so much. And definitely, if you have a card or something, if somebody wants to leave that with me, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you
bet.
so much.
Bet. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the work session, item 3. And that is discussion of short-term rentals in response to recent developments within our own city and other municipalities to coincide with our UDC modifications. And I have these to pass out. And if you'll give that to Councilman Degenhart and Connors, and these, yeah, pass these down to those. Well, I guess you have yours.
You have another copy by any chance?
Yep,
Fran?
we can share. Yeah. Oh, you guys can read that. Okay, so, wow, thank you. Thank you so much. So this was put on the agenda by Councilman Horton. So we'll start with you, Councilman Horton, and then we'll actually involve our Nathan Gonzalez as well in this.
Thank you, Madam
Public
Mayor.
hearing. Yep,
So, you know, I guess around November, we started getting some complaints from some of our citizens about some of the short-term rentals over in their neighborhoods. You know, all kinds of stories and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, so in the interest of time, I won't go into that, but I guess a couple weeks ago, we got word of a fireworks show. And obviously, you know, I love fireworks, but, you know, probably not in somebody's backyard. So started looking at what some of the other cities around the state, especially locally, have been doing to address short-term rentals. And as we're updating our UDC, just to kind of get the rest of the council's input on this as we move forward. But in essence, I've got Fort Worth, Arlington, Dallas, Plano, Austin, and Grapevine. And so they've taken a range of actions. Austin and Grapevine have attempted to, in essence, ban them to a certain extent. Dallas and Plano, it's on their radar. I believe Dallas, their April city council meeting is going to attempt to take action. And Plano is working, their city council is working with their P and Z department, looking into what they can do as well. 2016, Austin implemented an ordinance that suspended the licensing of new non-owner occupied STRs in residential areas. And then they designated 2022 for the end date. So obviously, you know, litigation ensued, they were struck down, but the analysis that I was able to gather, and I mean, I'm not an attorney, but it was struck down, Austin's attempt, because they failed to both zone and license the STRs in tandem. Grapevine also took this approach. 2018, they revised an existing ordinance, I believe that was passed in the early 80s. And basically said that short-term rentals have always been prohibited based on that ordinance. They were sued. The trial court issued a temporary injunction and Grapevine appealed, and basically the litigation is ongoing, but Grapevine is still right now, the city, continuing to enforce their ordinance, even with ongoing litigation. So it does appear that the case law in the state, even the state Supreme Court is siding on, you know, the side of the property owners. Like it appears that banning them outright is not going to stand. However, Arlington and Fort Worth have recently passed ordinances that, you know, perhaps we can go by. 2019, Arlington banned short-term rentals from residential areas except in the entertainment district near the stadiums. And then they created very specific regulations to define lodging facilities where tenancy may be arranged for a period of less than 30 days. Then just this past February, the city of Fort Worth unanimously passed a new ordinance with the following restrictions: that number one, no events or parties could be held at STR properties. The city will start collecting a hotel and occupancy tax on all STRs. And then all STR properties will have to pay an initial fee of $150 to properly register, and then a $100 renewal fee every year. And so, I mean, personally, I'm interested in seeing what we think as a council, working with our city as we do this, and really like what Fort Worth has done. And, you know, another stipulation I might add is, you know, where these tend to be happening, the disturbances within our city right now. I think we're R3 zoning, and maybe looking into something like banning them except to R1s where people are more spread out. But with that, I just kind of wanted to bring everybody's attention to this and give it back to you.
Can I get a base of where we currently are? What our ordinance is, where we stand currently? And how it's working for us?
Mayor and council, happy to provide you an update. Was the question specific to how many short-term rentals are in the city? Or what the, just the general details of the ordinance are?
All of the above.
Okay, I thought so. So currently we have, the city, I believe, collects hotel occupancy tax for 4 properties, 3, and then a 4th, that was just recently approved. There is one that's permitted, it was permitted in 2019. Actually, excuse me, 2 that were permitted in 2019. One that was built on Wildcat Way that was specifically, I believe, from what I've heard, was built for the purpose of creating a short-term rental. Altogether, I believe we have about 5. We have one that has been applied for, a permit has been inspected. Out of the 5 here in town, I have personally been in 4 of them. And so that's the current standing of where it's at. The recent one that was permitted, the ordinance requires that we notify property owners within 200 feet. So those letters will be going out this week. We've been cross-referencing our GIS appraisal district listings for the property owners. So we have 10 days since we've issued the permit to get that out. That's it in a nutshell. We do have a definition for a short-term rental, which is essentially anything that is less than 30 days. Now, our definition on a short-term rental specifically states that it does not include it's like a bed and breakfast or a hotel. Whereas on this list, great list, by the way, the some of the other cities, what they're doing is they're taking a look at how we're going to define a short-term rental. And they've included that lodging in other cities, the way they reference that, to essentially prohibit that within a residentially zoned district. Now, our definition of a short-term rental does not state that, but that could be something that council could consider.
And it seems like I remember something about they can't be next to each other.
Correct. There is a 500-foot rule. So upon permit intake now, what we do is we verify where we have short-term rentals, and we can create a buffer around that area for 500 feet. We don't have any, with the exception of the one that popped up on the radar last fall, that are within that 500 feet. So that one, and just an update on that one particular one, I've been in contact with the initial complainant in there, check in with him almost monthly now. And he gives me updates on what's going on. So far, there hasn't been any more issues in that neighborhood since then. It's still it's still listed on the website for Airbnb, for example, but as a long-term rental. So that you could list a property on those types of short-term rental websites. But if it's more than 30 days, it's no longer considered a short-term rental. So I believe that you'll see it up on Zillow, some other places as well.
Excellent. Councilman Gilly?
Thank you, Mr. Horton, and thank you, Nathan, for the update. What I would like to add to what Brad has suggested is that we consider limiting these going forward to R1 zoning. The problem is exacerbated by the crowding and the closeness. And it looks like to me that we may, input from the city attorney that perhaps we could limit them going forward to R1. And I think that we could also require a certain amount of off-street parking that would alleviate some of the problems that we have. And then I think we should also maybe revisit the time limit. Maybe we could consider short-term rentals 60 days and less, or some number, so that we could also cover these could be potentially problematic medium-term rentals. If they're longer than 30 days, if it's 45, that might be a loophole that they could exploit. So perhaps we should consider the time limit. Lastly, we know we're going to redo the zoning in UDC. Could we take the short-term rental issue and compartmentalize it and say, put that at the top of the stack? Could we work on that perhaps ahead of some of the other issues, sort of like what's going to be our action items later on? And could we, accelerate that? And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We'll go to Councilman Michaels. Councilman Degenhardt.
I think that we need to be careful about how draconian we go with limiting private business and the ability for people to use their private properties in the manner that they see fit. I stay in Airbnbs and VRBOs whenever I travel predominantly. I have small kids in it and it works well. I have a kitchen, make breakfast, wash bottles. Hotels don't work necessarily for my needs. I am in favor of the idea of minimum parking requirements, but at the same time, we know that a lot of parking lots, you can only fit 2 cars in a driveway, perhaps 1 or 2 on the street. So that would be something to be conscious of, but I would be more in favor of limiting the occupancy number to the number of bedrooms it has, but persons per bedroom, if you will, just as we do on apartment complexes and multifamily. I think if we were to take that approach, and correct, we may already have that requirement. I'm not sure if we do or not.
That's correct. The ordinance will allow two people per bedroom, plus an additional 2 more. Here in Kennedale, there are some pretty large properties that have 6 bedrooms. So that would give you 12 plus 2 more, 14 that could stay there. Now, there's also another caveat that says no more than 4 unrelated people can basically stay there. It doesn't say occupy the structure. So if they're if it's rented out, for example, having Thanksgiving dinner. I got a large family, so you'll probably exceed that. But how many people are actually staying the night is limited to no more than 4 unrelated people. But if they're all related, then that's the challenge.
So with that being said, it truly comes down to enforcement. If we have laws on the books already, what's to say that more laws on the books are going to be any more enforceable? Come holidays, you see 25, 30 cars parked on the street. Who knows whose house the party's being at? And if it is a short-term rental or not, people that are staying there have the same right to their driveway and parking directly in front of their house as any other resident on that street, if they're duly paying the rental fee. So I think it comes down to how are we going to enforce the current laws that we have on the books to ensure this isn't a problem for our citizens moving forward.
Thank you, Councilman Connors.
I actually echo Austin's sentiment. Who are we to tell anybody what they can do with their own land and their own house that they pay the rent and they pay the bills for? That is draconian in the utmost respectful sense of it. I don't feel that, I do feel that we do need to have some sort of limitation on the density. I do feel that we do need to have some sort of sense of, knowledge about where these, where they are. To your point, I don't think I'm going to be holding a Thanksgiving dinner in an Airbnb. I think that was a little kind of out there. Just to be honest with you, I don't stay in hotels either when I travel. I actually do stay in Airbnbs. And the reason why I do is because it gives you all the comforts of home. Whereas, the next door neighbor over there could be doing something that you don't want to listen to. And have you been in a hotel recently? Those walls are very thin. So I echo Mr. Degenhardt's sentiments. I think it is draconian. I think that who are we to tell people what they can do with their property that they bought? I don't believe that. I mean, it's out of my realm, to be quite honest. I don't believe anyone should tell me what I have the right to do at my own house. That's my thought.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought
It's
you were-
okay. As far as limiting it to R1 zoning, I don't believe that's an issue either. There's not that many R1s in Canada, to my knowledge. So I'd actually open it up to R1, R2. R3, R4, I think is a little too small. Apartment buildings, no. Any townhouses that might be built or that are going to be built soon, no. But R1, R2, yes, R3, R4, no. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. So one of the cities, and thank you so much for all this information, Councilman Horton. This really is excellent research and putting it together for all of us. But it mentions that Fort Worth, they pay an initial fee and then a renewal each year. Do we have that?
We do. We do. So there is an initial fee that they pay, and they have to pay that annually. So it's $150
Okay,
annually to maintain that permit. We are currently in the permitting software that we've had. The reoccurring permits and when those expire, I think has been a challenge for staff to police when that permit expires. It's at a manageable level where we can look up a handful of properties. But so we're looking at that on two of those properties where the property owners actually continue to pay their hotel occupancy tax since they've opened up the business. But I don't think staff informed them that they had to renew that permit every year. So they've been on the books for some time. It's just and they've actually passed inspection. So I've been at the property, passed inspection. They've got the rules. That's another caveat to our short-term rental is that you have to post rules for the tenants or for the occupants at the front door. In fact, on a recent short-term rental inspection, it didn't pass because they didn't have the rules posted at the front door. So that's one of the things that I think other cities are starting to implement. Ours does have some provisions, some teeth in there that I think other ordinances in other cities don't at this point. But to speak to your point about what we can do with zoning, our UDC doesn't have a definition, doesn't list short-term rental as a land use within the zoning. Our short-term rental ordinance is a separate standalone ordinance, and obviously, just like anything else, that could be amended. So if council or direct staff, we can begin looking at maybe increasing the distances between the short-term rentals as we go to update the UDC. And then we have additional public input. We can look to add short-term rental in the land use tables where you would see hotel, bed and breakfasts, for example, here in town. That's a definition that we have. Short-term rentals are not classified as bed and breakfasts, but those require a special exception to be applied for across the board in all residential. But hotels and motels are not prohibited in residentially zoned properties. So that would include agriculture, all of our properties, townhome, multifamily, and our manufactured home communities. So there are some things that we can look at moving forward when we go to do the full UDC update.
Nathan, I do apologize.
Yes.
If I may, I don't think that, Canadell is a massive tourist attraction. I don't believe that we need to increase the spatial difference. What? Yep,
Yeah.
it won't be. Oh, let's hope. But like I said, I don't think we need to increase the spatial requirements of that from 500 feet to say 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000. I think 500 is okay. I would not be in favor of something like that. So if we could just put that on the record that.
Certainly entertain any direction council can provide.
So let me just say this, it sounds like each person has a little bit unique idea of what they'd like. And so as you as our director, what I'm thinking is, as you are working on this standalone ordinance, because you've worked with these before and we now see the other things that the other cities are doing. Maybe we would like to see a recommendation from you for Kennedale. And then from there, we could even bring it back to the table and take up, because, one person may be the only one that wants one thing. And, we may need to take a vote on, or just a hand raise on, kind of what the majority would like on something like this. And I don't know if council, if you are prepared to do that tonight, or if you would like to have some time and have Nathan bring it back to us. Okay, perfect. Councilman Gilly?
I wanted to address the private property issue, which is very valid. I'm a libertarian, sort of, within reason. But what this is, it's commercial use of a residential property at the nut, at the root of this. And this is like living next to a hotel. And zoning and ordinance, zoning ordinances were developed, number one, for public safety. You don't want a fertilizer plant by residential development, as happened about 10 years ago in West. We've had that. And you want compatible uses. And so even though I'm a private property, I respect private property and everything, we do regulate business use out of homes. And that is how I see this. It's like a pop-up motel next door to you. And yes, I like your approach, Madam Mayor, of asking Nathan to come back with some suggestions and we review them and do it relatively quickly.
Councilman Gilly, thank you for that. I do want to just advise council as well. We do have the most recent one that was recently inspected and passed. It was actually owner occupied as well. So so the concerns, I definitely understand those. But there are instances where you have owner occupied short-term rentals. So folks that kind of travel for business, and then while they're not there, they're utilizing their property to kind of supplement some income. So that is occurring here in town, and but I'll certainly continue to work on bring forward a recommendation to council.
I appreciate it, because what we're trying to do is to get ahead of the problem, although there are only 5 currently, but we know that it's coming. So if we can get ahead of the problem, that it, then it helps us as we move into it, as these continue to grow. One more thing, Councilman Michaels.
Nathan, when was our ordinance set for short-term rentals?
When did it go into effect?
Yeah, like 2017 or something like that? You don't know?
2019. Okay.
So I guess that's why we're kind of ahead of everybody that's struggling right now, because the one actually did some homework and did it right. All right, thank you.
Good question. Excellent. All right, thank you, Nathan. All right, if there's no more questions, discussion on that, we are going to move to item number 4, discussion regarding the senior citizen tax freeze. Ooh. Speaking of freeze, I know, I'm glad I have a jacket on tonight. And no, you can't use mine. Okay, so this was presented to us a couple of months ago by Councilman Gilly, and it's been put on the agenda for us. We'll have a little bit more information, but Councilman Gilly, if you want to kick this off.
Yes, and I'd like to also, not just Councilman Gilly, I know this was a concern by Councilman Connors a few months ago also. Okay, so we're faced with people that are being taxed out of their homes. I heard a story today, a gentleman that is in arrears on his taxes. It takes 3 of his Social Security checks, or maybe 4, to pay his property taxes. And residential values, values have tripled probably in the last 20 years. I got my blue sheet today. My 75-year-old home has appreciated 95% since 2018. Now, ultimately, the elected bodies in the city select the property tax. So don't ever let anyone tell you that the reason that you have to pay more taxes is because your house is worth more. The cost of your home or your property has no direct cause or effect on what it costs the city to provide services. If it does, it's very minimal. It's just a method that makes it easier for taxing bodies to collect the tax. So as the valuations go up, our tax rates need to come down. That being said, it's an easy way to drive us into higher and higher taxes. Kennedale is one of 14 cities out of the 41 in Tarrant County that does not have an over 65 tax freeze on city property taxes. I think it's time that we consider enacting that. Two methods. One is we simply enact it. If we get 3 votes, it's an ordinance. The other is to put it on the ballot. Any advantage you give to one person tax-wise shifts that disadvantage to other people. So there will be some shifting of the tax burden from people that are 65 years of age and older to people that are not. And this only also applies to homesteaded property. Any property that you may have that's not homesteaded, this would not apply to. And I think we've got some initial financial analysis and I'll be interested in hearing that.
Excellent. And also, I think council was in agreement when we discussed this a couple of months ago that we would vote on it as a council and not have it go to ballot. Is that correct?
That was correct. I do believe that at the time that all of council was in agreement with this and we felt that it did not need to go to a ballot at that time. I still don't feel it does.
I agree. And so I just wanted to bring that up just so we make sure that we're all on going in the same direction. So this is just to review the financials on the tax freeze, and it should be on the June agenda for us to approve this. So with that, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Daryl Hull, to review the financial impact.
I take it everybody's had a chance to look at the numbers. Basically, the bottom line of it is if we move forward with this taxation or the property tax revenues, basically overall, and these are all rough numbers. This is not set in stone by any means, but there'll be roughly a $30,000 increase or less tax that the city would receive in the fiscal year of 2024. So ultimately, the tax would not affect us until the 2025. So ultimately, at the face value, it's $28,327 that the city will not incur during that tax year. The numbers that you see are based off the 2021 tax year, which affects the 2022 budget. So the numbers that you're looking, total appraised value is basically a little over 1 billion. The taxable value is 879 million. The over 65 taxable value is 137 million, which is roughly about 15% of what the taxable value currently is. With the projections that we're looking at to moving into the next budget and for the overall, those numbers are, in my opinion, at minimum. This tax rate, if it stays the same as it is, we're looking at roughly a 3.5% growth in taxable value currently. So we're looking at going into 24 year. We believe the value basically for the over 65 freeze is at $188,000 without. So we implement the over 65 tax freeze, it roughly drops to 160,521, which the cost over the 65 is roughly $28,000. Once again, those are rough numbers, but it's not a very high cost in reference to what the gain possibly could be.
Do we have an idea of how many at over 65, the homestead exemption, the number of households that was based on? Do we have that?
currently, that's 650 accounts that would affect it as of right now. So, and obviously that's the 65 and over, and those numbers at this point, I can only assume are for the exempt for that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Councilman, sorry. I'm studying my paper. Councilman Connors?
Oh, yeah. So, the reports that just recently came out from TAD themselves, the Tarrant Appraisal District, is people saw a 10 to 20% increase. So I think that 3.5% growth in taxable value is grossly very conservative. I think that I would like to see kind of a spreadsheet of where we would go into the higher numbers around that 10 to 20%, because Mr. Gilly said that his house has appreciated 95%. I can tell you mine has appreciated 65.
I think
And
this is based on the tax rate.
I understand that, but I
Okay.
think that we need to look at higher numbers, because 3.5% is a conservative number. It's a very conservative number.
That's correct. And there's, like I said, it's a very rough number. These
Yes.
numbers are prior to the tax, our values coming out. this
Now that
week.
we have those values, I think we need to look at it again.
Well, some of the numbers are also based off of some of our audit as well.
Okay.
So currently our audit's still in process, so we should be able to finish that. That's the reason why I'm indicating it's very rough numbers. But I think it gives us an idea of what we're looking at when we do present it to you in June. Obviously, once our audit is complete, we'll have solid numbers and we can update as we move forward. But we're looking into May and really to get the numbers solid.
Yeah, because like I said, 3.5%. I'm looking at this, I'm sitting here going $28,000. That's not much. I'd love this number. There's nothing wrong with this number. I think that if it were to be put in front of me right now, I'd pass it. However, I think we need to look at other numbers in taxable growth. I think we need to look at a more reasonable number. So 3.5% is very conservative. I'd like to look at a spreadsheet or something that would give a higher percentage in growth, just to be on the safe side of things, so that we're not sitting here possibly hurting the city going forward. And it's a fine line that you're having to walk on this is, do we hurt the city's revenues, or do we, save our seniors? And at the same time, you want to do both. You want to save our seniors and you want to keep them in their homes and, make them feel comfortable and say, hey, look, we got your back, and put it on my back. I'm only 40. I'll be 43. Put it on my back. I'll carry you. I don't care. But at the same time, I don't want to hurt the cities. So with that being said, if there's this put in front of me right now, I'd pass it.
Thank you. Councilman Degenhardt?
I don't really have any feedback on it. I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you. Councilman Michaels?
I kind of agree with Councilman Connor. Sorry, got too close. I got my blue sheet yesterday in the mail, and then my house went up 10% and my vacant lot went up 18%. So within from 2017 to now, I went up 120% on my TAD appraisal, and that's the whole thing, is doing a tax freeze for the senior citizens. I don't think we're going to see much of a change due to the fact that our appraisals keep going up every year. So 10%, what are we actually going to be losing in taxes when we're gaining because of the appraisal? Till the state does something with TAD, or TAD does something with themselves. I mean, I'm still for this because I got 9 years, I'll be there. So that's it.
Councilman Horton?
I have nothing to add other than I do support it.
Thank you. Would you like to close this out?
Yeah, one last thing. Let's not confuse valuation and appraisals of your home with taxes. That does not drive taxes. they like to make us believe it drives taxes. It doesn't. Spending drives taxes. The increase in valuation just gives them an easier story to take the more money away from you. And the body that controls the tax rate, not the tax rate. Let's forget about the tax rate. The body that controls the increase, decrease of taxes in Kennedale is right here.
That's correct. And I do have one citizen that would like to speak, and I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. Mark Bambina to come up because he's speaking on this subject.
Thanks, Jan. Oh, excuse me. Aaron, thanks. Mark Babina, 1056 Falcon Nest Drive. Council members, Mayor, thank you. Well, it's been a long time, been a hard fought battle, but I think we're going to get this thing done. Let me, Councilman Connor, let me just help you a little bit. Let's just move that rate up. By the way, your ROM numbers are good numbers. You know, it's hard to work for something like that. And I fully understand. We're trying to do a cost benefit analysis, how it will benefit the homeowner versus how it benefits the city. That's a tough thing to do when you don't really have the kind of data you need to pull and extrapolate and present to this group. Let's move it to 10.5%. That 10.5% equates to about 40 cents a day. Less than 40 cents a day. $12 a month, maybe $130 a year. If you base the numbers on what Daryl had done, 28,000, something like that, 650 accounts. So it's less than a soda pop down at the grocery store. You look at it that way. So it's a minuscule number. And then you got to also look at the fact that the city's going to grow. So you're not losing the revenue, you're just freezing the revenue. And then you don't know how long you're going to freeze the revenue, because I can't tell you how long I'm going to live being a senior citizen, and neither can anybody else. So, but then you're going to have that put and take, and you're going to have, some are going to move into that category like 9 years. You're already there. So, I think it's a win-win situation. When you only got one of 14, our city's a little more progressive than that. But anyway, I do appreciate you guys doing what you're doing, and hope we do the right thing. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to work session number 5. It's our last work session.
Madam Mayor, can I please request a small little?
You certainly.
Thank you. I've got it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this will be a quick one, I think. If you.
I might need
It's
some depends. I'm
yes.
not sure.
I was planning on taking a break after this, so that I was gonna say, okay. All right, so number 5, discussion of the Texas Raceway 6-inch sewer line emergency repair. And this is gonna be, we're gonna talk to Mr. Christian Sugrim is gonna talk to us about this. He is our Public Works Director. Did I pronounce your last name right? Sugrim, thank you.
Mayor, Council, Manager. I'm sure you all are pretty about that issue we were facing with a fixing sanitary sewer that's crossing, well, it's a sewer crossing over a creek on the racetrack. I don't know, there's no street, it's a private property, and that's in the verge of collapse at any time. So we're looking at doing an emergency here to prevent something catastrophic from happening.
Question.
But we have to
There
pay
you
the
go. Perfect.
TCQ a bunch of money because the average rate for a TCQ is $5,000 per day for violation. And we are not in good faith with TCQ currently, so to avoid that, we want to make sure that we get this fixed. What's happening right now, to put it in perspective, here is the creek. And we have the crossing, a sanitary sewer 6-inch crossing here. The pillars that supporting this crossing here has eroded over the years. So right now, our sewer line is like that. I get it. The sewer line over the creek is like this now. So we get a big flood or heavy rain, it's gone. Now we have spillage on there. So we are looking to have the council execute emergency repair to get this sewer line replaced. And not replaced, but put some new pillars and get it back aligned.
Do we have a cost?
Not yet. The contractor hasn't provided me a cost yet. But, I've been doing some little checking on my own. And I would prefer that we have a engineering structural design done instead of just go and jerry rig it. And I'm thinking from a construction cost, from an engineering standpoint, we are looking like about $23,000, $24,000 just for design. And construction cost is like 2.5 times that, so it's probably be like $55,000 plus your 20,000. You're looking like about $75,000 to fix that.
Thank you. I think that if you want to follow up with him on that.
Once we get the estimate that's coming in, obviously, we'll share that with you. And once we're able to do that, obviously, the mayor and I will get with, see what we can do as far as moving forward. If we can, I understand these are very, very rough numbers, but we also feel this is an emergency for us to act as soon as we can to prevent any further damage to any property. Obviously, we don't want to deal with TCEQ at all. But with that rough numbers, if you can at least maybe give me the ability to make that purchase and move forward with it.
Okay, I don't know if you all been to that racetrack out there. You would think that creek is dry. It was a heavy flow and it runs straight down into Arlington. So sewage gets into there, then we have Arlington to deal with, CQ to deal with.
We'll start with Councilman Councilman Michaels. I was looking here and said here,
We are not
over here.
related. One of my questions is, we are under contract with the city of Arlington. Is there any way that we can use the city of Arlington to cut costs on maybe the engineering or something like that, or maybe have them actually doing the work?
Well, I think they're only on the maintenance and operation, not for stuff like this. So whatever the agreement we have with Arlington, this is not covered on that.
This wouldn't cover
Certainly.
maintenance?
Even wonder why we even got into a contract with Arlington, because every time we need something fixed, they say they don't do it.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you.
Councilman Horton? Any questions? No? Gilly? Councilman Gilly?
I guess one question is this part of the Basin B that we're considering to completely redo? It
It's
is?
in that area.
Okay, so that's why we can just shore this up as a short-term fix until it is replaced when we address Basin B.
I don't think it's not the same line. It's a separate line, but it's in Basin.
It's in the same vicinity.
not the
but a
critical.
Different line.
Yeah, it's two different lines.
So if this was not, the pillars were not, the supports were not giving way and it was not bending, this would not need replacement
Correct.
currently. Okay, thank
don't
you.
need- Right now, there's no need for replacing. We just need to get it
Fix
back
it.
in support and have it aligned.
All right,
Right
thank,
now, it's like that.
okay.
Board.
No need to expand it, just fix it. Okay, thanks.
Councilman Degenhardt?
I'm all for getting it repaired, needs to be repaired.
Yeah, exactly. Councilman Connors?
Under the Arlington contract, this wouldn't cover maintenance.
Because
What-
This is not maintenance. Because it's not broken.
Oh, it's a support.
It's
Yeah.
two pillars that's supporting it is
Yeah.
now gone. They eroded away.
Oh. I would call that maintenance, but okay. Stupid me. Yeah, we need to fix it. So as soon as the cost comes in, let me know.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, we're gonna take a 10-minute, or 10-minute break? 5-minute? Okay, 5-minute. We'll say 5 and then it'll be 10, but we'll go 5-minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the speaker. How was everything? I'm finding out. It was cold, rain, cold. Right now there's. This
All right, we'll reconvene now and we will have, we'll go into our regular session. And we will have our invocation and pledges of allegiance to the US and Texas flags. And I've asked Councilman Horton to do our invocation for us and Councilman Michaels to lead us in the pledges. And we'll have our invocation first. Okay, we will move into reports and announcements. We'll start with updates from our council and we'll start with Councilman Connors.
Hello, okay, yeah, it's on. I don't really have any updates at this time. Most of them are put on Facebook anyways. I would like to say though that I am looking forward to a couple of events coming up. Holly Tucker is coming to town. The quarter auction is on Thursday, benefiting the Boy Scouts of America. Tuesday, I'm sorry, my bad. We do have a debate coming up on the 24th, which is also the starting of early voting. We have a lot of events coming to Cannondale Barbecue Cook-Off, so I do encourage everyone to take a look at that. No events that have happened, but since this could possibly be my last chance on council, I did want to let the council know and the citizens know that for the past 2 years, it's been an honor to serve you. And I thank you very much for your time, your patience, and your questions. So again, thank you.
Councilman Degenhart,
No update from you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Michaels.
About the only update I have is this past weekend, we did the Texas trash off and we had about 20 people and we picked up a lot of trash, so.
We sure did. Thank you for that. Thank you for driving us around in the bus, to pick us up. Yeah. Councilman Horton.
Sorry that I missed the trash off, out of town, didn't get back till Saturday evening. But I saw the pictures on Facebook. Looks like a lot of great work was done. This past month, I attended the Chamber of Commerce luncheon. It was quite interesting and looking forward to the one tomorrow as well. I've visited a couple local businesses and continue to be impressed with the entrepreneurs and business owners in the city. Easter Sunday, I was blessed to attend First United Methodist Church sunrise service at Sonora Park. Thank you, Ms. Lori, for the invite. It was a very beautiful service. Really glad I got to attend it. And I was thinking that was probably the first sunrise service I've attended since I was a kid. So it was really, really special. And thank you so much. This Saturday evening, thank you, Ms. Sarah, for the invite. The new senior outreach of Cannondale's celebration. Really looking forward to a great evening and a great cause. And that's all I got, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gilly.
Well, I've kind of been campaigning and talking to a whole bunch of people, and in the interest of keeping this meeting short, that's all I got.
Okay, well, the mayor's update. If you haven't been to our library lately, I would invite you to take a look at the Kennedale Public Library Facebook page to see some of the activities and resources offered. I took advantage of the ABCs and Ds of Medicare. We had our third meeting with the Kennedale Community Connections Group. This is a group that I started to pull the resources together to support needs of the community. And I just want to thank Dr. Devlin, she's the KISD Director of Counseling, our City Manager, Daryl Hall, Dr. Douglas, the Rotary President, and KPD Community Engagement Officer, India Murray, and then Elizabeth, our Director of Senior Library, Elizabeth Partridge, and several nonprofits for attending. This is not on the agenda. Oh, I was going to say, what's not on the agenda? So it's not on the agenda, but I am working with the KKB Chair, Kim Courtney, on the Mayor Monarch Pledge. So if you have any interest in learning about the monarchs or helping in the gardens, please contact the Keep Kennedale Beautiful board. You can find information on the city website or on Facebook. There were several meetings that I attended, including the Tarrant County Homeless Coalition. And these meetings are to find support and resources and work together with our neighbors on the homelessness, which is beneficial to us all, because there's a lot of resources that go out to the homeless community. There was a mayor's council, a Greater Arlington prayer breakfast that I had the honor of being seated with the former mayor of Arlington, Jeff Williams, and his wife, along with Dalworthington Mayor and Susan Wright. And it was just incredible being in a room filled with elected officials and churches and businesses in prayer for our cities and our schools and our communities and our first responders. It was really incredible. And on a small scale, I did find out that Jeff Williams is the one that created that. And so on a small scale, the group that I've put together, the Kennedale Community Connections Group, that was my heart for that group, is that we would pull together and be in prayer and support each other and the resources and the need for our community. So it was really great seeing that on a very large scale. I had the pleasure of taking cupcakes to our 911 dispatchers during their appreciation week. And while I was there, a call came in from Kennedale that I was able to see how they take the calls and dispatch to the responders. It was really interesting. I was escorted by our very own 911 director, Lori Boyd. Retired now, so now you know where the cupcakes came from. The Tarrant County Homeless Coalition has several partners, one of them being DRC Solutions, and they provide outreach groups and vouchers. I attended one of their seminars to, again, just help us more understand the issues and the resources that they make available to us. It was mentioned Saturday morning, if you were out on Kennedale Parkway, you may have seen us picking up trash. I want to thank the Keep Kennedale Beautiful and Public Works group for coordinating the efforts. And if you would like to participate in any way, please contact the Keep Kennedale Beautiful and to coordinate a date, time, and area that you would like to help keep our community looking so good. I think someone mentioned we could do this on a daily basis for a whole year, right? Saturday night, I had so much fun at the Kennedale Speedway Park. I'm actually embarrassed to say that this was my very first time to go, and it will definitely be a night I'll treasure forever. They offered me and my granddaughters the honor of waving the green flag to start the race. We had a blast. I want to thank the promoter, James Lopez, for the invitation and the hospitality. I'm really excited that we're now partnering with the track. I think I was the first ever council person to ever go to the track, and they made mention of that. And I think this event that we're hosting with them in May may be the first event that the city is partnering with them. So I am excited for other things that they will be doing and that we'll be able to partner with them. The May 19 to 20th barbecue showdown will be the next time that I think the sprint cars are there. And if you haven't seen sprint cars, because I didn't know a sprint car from a other kind of car, but it was really exciting. Councilman Michaels told me it was like riding a bull, that it was similar to like riding a bull, right? Yeah. And I could see that. Yeah. So this Saturday, again, everyone's mentioned the Holly Tucker concert. There is a ticket, but if you don't have a ticket, come on, don't let that stop you. What's the time on that event? Oh. So 7 o'clock for the concert. Okay, perfect. And if you want to come early to help volunteer, come earlier than 7. And bring food or cash donations. Should be- Perfect. There are a lot of fun events happening in our community. It's a perfect time to enjoy our parks. The weather is amazing. Outdoor Theater is going to be presenting Once Upon a Mattress, April the 28th and 29th at 7 p.m. I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to miss that, but I love that they have that in at Town Center Park. Last but mostly importantly, use your voice in the local elections. Monday early voting will begin. And that's all I have. I'll turn it over to our city manager.
Awesome. I'm very pleased tonight to be able to introduce one of our newest directors, our finance director. We've finally have located the best one, and that's Jonathan Horton. If you'll stand up and let's get you introduced to our great council and our citizens as a whole. And I'll just give you a little bit of summary of his background. And he's a locally educated, globally trained professional who has excelled in analytical, tax advisory, customer service, sales, and management roles across several different environments. His current role, he provided tax and business operations strategies to businesses, clients, tax strategies to individual clients, and provide a classroom training to associate level staff. His professional experiences with Hartman, Monroe, tax strategy, put it that way. UT Southwestern Medical Center, he was there for 5 years, dealing with their projects and input annual department budget. Also with Capital One, and also he served our great nation as United States Army Reserve as a cable systems installer, system administrator, public affairs broadcast specialist. So thank you for your service on top of that. On his educational side, he has a Master of Science in Accounting from Texas A&M University Commerce, a Bachelor's in Business Administration with Texas Wesleyan. Professional certifications with Certified Public Accountant for Texas Board of Public Accountancy and Certified Pro Advisor from QuickBooks. John, thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing Kennedale, and I looked at many years of working together and making this great city even better.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
And while we have him up there, I don't know, we have our financial report. I don't know if anyone. I don't
Come
know
on up.
if you're prepared for that or not. You've been employed, what is this, day 2, 3? Day 2, right? Yeah, sure. Why not? So we have our financial report for the city and for the EDC. There weren't any based on what I saw, there weren't any surprises, continue to increase sales, tax revenues. Everything is tracking like it should be. Everything looks good. So if you guys don't have any questions, we'll move on to our visitor and citizen forum. No questions? Okay, we'll move on. I have a couple of people that would like to speak. We'll start with John Havali, and remember it's 3 minutes. And give your address when you come up.
John Havali, 418 Cocoa Valley Drive, Kennedale, Texas, 76006. I wanted to address this during the work session discussion that was going on the issue of senior citizen tax free. Couple of things. The appraised value of properties have gone up. And that's because of those who are coming from outside our state. One case in point, real quick, I met a gentleman at Costco. He comes from California and he says, an older gentleman, he says, I got $900,000. I sold a house that was only 1,250 square feet, and I came here in 500,000. I dropped cash and I bought a house that's 4,500 square feet, and the rest I got whatever I want. That's what's driving up prices. So for us senior citizens, we need to also look at the point that the economic conditions are starting to deteriorate. What happens, and if I get this correct, Councilman Corner suggested, correct me if I'm wrong, tax percent of 3.5% needs to go up higher.
This is a visitor forum. I can't respond.
Can respond, fine. But there needs to be a distinction probably between or should be between senior citizens 65 and above, that they will pay a certain rate, just like as you have the homestead exemption for senior citizens. Why can't there be some type of scenario set up by the city for the tax issues where the percent doesn't keep going up? The other point, I just ran into a Texas code. Let me give it out real quick. Texas Code 3306. The Texas Tax Code Section 3306 allows taxpayers 65 years of age or older and homeowners with disabilities to defer property taxes on their primary residence homestead. And that can be deferred until the person dies. And there's a lot more detail here. So senior citizens, you can look at this tax deferment. I was reading about it quite a bit. Tax Code 3306. So I do appreciate your discussion. So do consider the senior citizens, especially those that are on fixed incomes. A lot of us are on fixed incomes. And as you all come up with some solutions that you will consider, just like the homestead exemption, maybe there could be some numbers where the tax for senior citizens don't go above a certain point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I have Bob Rugenhagen. The Colonel. It's good to see you. No problem. Take your time.
Oh, what I'm talking about till I got here. I often do that. I am happy to be here. Haven't been here for a while. I've got some old friends in here, hope some new ones. Howdy, Pit Stop over there in the corner. Anyway, I will try to be 3 minutes. Okay, well, Rocky, ring the bell. I just being in the gallery here tonight, I didn't even know we had short-term rentals. I'd like to make a comment. I don't know what kind of situation you get in with your home where you need or have a short-term rental. I can see if I had a nice 4-bedroom place over next door to the Cowboy Stadium, I might want to get me into a retirement place where they do my laundry and call me for supper and I can rent the place out. But Kennedale, I don't see it fits. I don't know if we discussed the homeowners association. Do they have any of the 5 in a homeowners association in Kennedale? I can't imagine them liking that, but anyway, that comes to my mind. And I have seen a section of Arlington where they have this and it turned into a bad deal. So I wanted to mention that as an observation. Next item is the tax freeze for the seniors. We had some folks here that have been talking about that for years and it'll be nice. I think that's the biggest item on my tax bill is city tax. But I want to ask a question that nobody's talked about. It's been 10 years or better that we used to, the over 65 folks used to get a exemption on their water bill discount and their trash bill. Well, I don't know who or why it came about, but somebody wouldn't allow that until you brought your last year's tax return in and showed them whether or not you could afford or whether they shouldn't give you that break. So as a result, we lost the tax exemption on the water bill. And I wanted to ask if you're far enough along with this city tax freeze, whether that's gonna be a item. Well, I'd ask you that, if there's gonna be a restriction on property owners' income as to whether or not they qualify for the tax freeze. Been some 8 years ago or so that we had a real problem there with the city over water rates. And I thought about it tonight because it all started with a broken sewer line. Well, I know you all know how to handle that, and that ought to be priority one, that broken sewer line. So we won't do that again. I'm interested in the school bond. And I followed that. It's been 20 years ago that we had the last big bond was for $40 million. 20 years ago, that was a big item. Since then, they built that beautiful high school, the Performing Arts Center, the 3 athletic fields, maintained the other 6 schools we've got. And I don't know, I haven't kept up. I don't have any children anymore in schools here. Got a lot of children, they're around other places. But anyway, I'm going to follow that, and I can see that I've studied what's on the internet, and I like it. But the main reason I wanted to talk tonight is to bring up some business that I don't know what direction all of you live from this hall that we're in. But for those of you that have to drive home towards Little Road, if you just drive up and down Little Road one way or the other and go through the roundabouts, I'm going to request that the city add to their street painting a renewal of the markings down there in those roundabouts. I think they've been there 7 years and we haven't painted them again. The inner circles had a reflective yellow stripe. The outer curbs were white, or the street was, the markings are in the street, and as a result of the weather and the traffic, those markings, most of them are gone. The only ones that are still even, that you can see the white on are the ones going east on Sublet. But that bothers me when I'm night flying to be over there on in the roundabouts, because you can't, there's a city light on each corner, and I don't know if they're all working or not. But anyway, other than that, I've been with the city here all my time, and I've been on some boards and got to know a lot of people, aggravated a lot of people. And I'm glad to see what we got now, things going. I've met the new Public Works Director, Christian. Had something to do with him. He's got his hands full, I'll tell you right now. But
Well, Mr. Guggenheim, we appreciate you and we want to thank you for your service as well, not only for what
Well,
you've done for our city, but also for our nation. So thank you very
thank
much.
you all.
Thank
and
you so much.
Wish you well. God bless.
Thank you. We are going to move to our consent agenda. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. We have minutes and then 3 P and Z cases that were heard this past week. So unless anyone wants to pull any of these, I'll take a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Did y'all want to pull something? Sorry.
Could we pull item 2 PZ case 23-2?
Sure. So let's go for a motion again for 1, 3, and 4.
Motion. Hold on. I need to amend the motion. Motion to approve the consent agenda 1, 3, and 4.
You have a second? All in favor? Unanimous for 1, 3, and 4. Okay, so PZ 2302, Approval preliminary plat of tracks 1D through 10E, the Russell Jesse Survey abstract located at 1220 Mansfield Carden Road. I'll turn that over to you. You wanted to pull it.
You know, and I mean, I understand that it is zoned for R4 already. I have concerns with our infrastructure around that area. I have concerns looking at just the natural grading of the property. I fear we're going to have similar situations. This goes forward with what we just saw earlier tonight. And you know, I worry about our infrastructure being able to handle that addition of, I believe it's 10 homes in the area. And again, that's pretty much all I have, so.
Just a reminder, council, that this is a ministerial act. If the plat has met all of our ordinance requirements, you really have no discretion but to approve it.
Anyone have any other follow-up conversation to that? If not, we'll go ahead and take a motion to, on item 2.
I have concerns about the detention pool pond in one of the lots. I would just like a little more reassurance that the engineering on it has been properly done.
Who would you get that from? Nathan?
Councilman Gillett, so this, this development, preliminary drainage was a part of that, preliminary grading, utility plans, lot layout, was all submitted and reviewed by our engineers. They've gone through multiple reviews for drainage specifically, and this detention pond that is on site. Following today's proposal or consideration of the approval for the preliminary plat, the next step is final engineering review, where that will be ironed out. But based off of speaking with our engineers, there wasn't really much left in the review part. So we believe that the site development permit, which is what I've put in place to facilitate engineering review, will satisfy the city's requirements for this development. But the plat itself was met all our requirements, and we felt comfortable bringing it for you.
Thank you, Nathan. So do I have a motion for item number 2?
Motion to approve item number 2 on the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All against? So 3-2 with it passing 3-2, Councilman Gilly and Horton against. And we're going to move on to our individual consideration. We only have one item. It shows 2. Item number 2 is going to be pulled. TxDOT is not prepared. So we have one item, and that is the discussion and approval of a park dedication fund ordinance. And basically this gives us the ordinance that we need to use funds in the park dedication. So everyone has the ordinance now, and unless there's any discussion, I'll take a motion on this.
Has this been vetted before I?
Yes. Then I'll turn this over to you. How about that? What was the, oh, I see on the outside.
Microphone. Daryl.
Yes, in reference to the park fee, I did have a discussion with your colleague.
so I'm putting him on the spot to make sure he's had a chance to,
Yes, I have reviewed it, and basically, from all the discussions in reference to the park dedication, fund, that's basic, it's a very simple ordinance, that helps define, what our capabilities are and what we can use those funds for. And, you know, I know it's kind of late for you guys getting a copy of it. And I think it's something that you need to take the review. And, if you need to get back with me, obviously, we can do that. If you've made some, corrections or anything you want to make, and you already know those, obviously you can pass it tonight and then we can make those revisions, to be able to move forward. But the idea of our communications is basically have a simplified ordinance that allows us to be able to, use the fees, for the intent of our, parks. And it's not just one for that particular neighborhood, it's for the city as a whole, not a community, park.
Do you want to take time to review this and get back to him, or do you want to go ahead and
I-
move it tonight? And
I would feel comfortable looking at this. So at this time, I'd actually like to present a motion to table the approval of the park dedication fund ordinance so that council has an opportunity to look through it.
Okay.
Um,
the same, everyone feels the same way? Okay, that's fine.
motion to table.
Okay.
Second.
Yep, second, all in favor? All right, we'll bring this back next month. Perfect. And last but not least, I know it was a long meeting, but it's 8:15. We only have one more item. That's good. Public hearing, this will be a public hearing on PZ case 2305. Consider approval of ordinance number 746, amending the Unified Development Code. And Nathan, thank you so much for this. And we'll have a public hearing, and then we will have the approval. So if you want to give us a summary of it, then we'll open the public hearing, close it, and then have the approval of it.
Thank you, Mayor. Council. Tonight, let me make sure I've got the staff report. Okay, so in January, City Council noted its approval to begin the long overdue updates to our comprehensive plan, future land use plan in our Unified Development Code. As you know, Dunaway was selected to assist us with this project. And as this is going to be a year-long endeavor, staff, we began looking at what changes to the UDC could be implemented in the interim. Additionally, City Council, if you recall, you directed staff to propose amendments to the Unified Development Code during last month's regular meeting to address, the density, spatial requirements, and consider other tools aimed at retaining Kennedale's small town feel and character. The Planning and Zoning Commission, they indicated similar sentiments during its regular meeting in March. What I want to do tonight is in your staff report, I kind of listed out what those proposed text amendments are. But tonight, what I want to do is I prepared just a simple slide deck to kind of walk you through what those text amendments are. And then I'm going to kind of touch on what those reasonings would be as well. So moving forward, so this is our current standard. So our first proposal is revised spatial requirements for the R4 single family district. What you see in your staff report, what you see up on the screen is the current table, which notes R4, the minimum lot area being 5,000 square feet, minimum lot width 50 feet, 100-foot lot depth. And I want to bring your attention to the side setbacks that are listed there. 5 on one side, on the greater side, 2 on the other side. So what we're bringing forward is the new standard, what we've done is we've increased the minimum lot area to 7,250 square feet for an R4 lot. Additionally, we're proposing a 70-foot lot width. You'll also note that the side setbacks have been increased from 5 and 2 to 10 and 10 on each side. We've also adjusted, I guess, the maximum height here on this table. I believe it was 40 feet. It's 35 feet, which is pretty consistent with other type of residential. Next, we're also proposing revised density requirements for the multifamily district. Here, you'll notice the current standard is 16 units per acre. What we're proposing in this revised table in your draft ordinance is 8 units per acre. And so that was what council highlighted last month. So this is where that has been reflected in the proposal. Here, you'll also notice we've added some spatial requirements for the townhome district. And we thought this was beneficial. You'll see a new column there. In the previous column, it didn't even have a column for the townhome district. It was a separate section. It really spoke to more how you design the building, how you site the building on the towards the build line, but it didn't provide any spatial requirements. We thought this would be beneficial because we've had conversations with developers and they wanted to present a townhome development. Instead, they presented a multifamily. And they said, we would have loved to have presented a townhome, but you didn't give us anything to work with. So there wasn't an actual standard. We didn't know what minimum lot width we needed to design to. So that's caused some confusion up there. It's left developers kind of unclear how to design their projects and kind of unsure what would be acceptable to the city. So you'll see a new column there that includes minimum lot area of 3,000 square feet for a townhome. We've also, you'll note the density. So we've added density to the townhome district, also 8 units per acre on there. That was something that was not currently addressed in our Unified Development Code. And again, if I'm going through these too fast, let me know. I'm happy to answer any questions on any one of these particular items. We are proposing revised minimum height requirements for multifamily in our townhome districts. So the current standard shows it at 3 stories and 38 feet. Your proposal, your draft ordinance will list 2 stories with a max of 35 feet. Additionally, we looked at the village district. So that would be your urban villages and your neighborhood villages. This is a revised section 5.2, which notes site plan approval. Developments would require site plan approval from City Council following a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Additionally, these are again for urban villages and neighborhood villages. Any approved site plan that council would have approved, any changes to that site plan would need to be reviewed again by P&Z and come back to council prior to implementing that. So that's a section that was rewrote to reflect that requirement. We also looked at adding phase development. I want to spend just a brief moment on this section here because this is a new section 5.6. It's at the end of the neighborhood, excuse me, at the end of the village district article in our UDC. So what this is speaking to is that when we have a neighborhood village or an urban village that includes multiple phases, that the mixed use or commercial component of that urban village be developed as the first initial phase of the project. And then any residential component to that urban village or neighborhood village will be developed only after substantial completion of that first use mixed phase. Now, that's great when you have multiple phases, but what happens if we're going to do it all in one phase? What do we do at that point? So subsection B speaks to that. So in developments that do not include phases, that mixed use commercial component shall be constructed at the same time as the residential component. I've also, we've also added that no building permit shall be issued until both the mixed use or commercial and the residential structures have been submitted, reviewed, and approved. So we want to see the full picture of what that urban village is going to look like, what the full picture of the whole thing. If they're going to piece it together, okay, we have a provision in there that will direct how that's supposed to be done. But if it's all together, we want to see the full picture. And we won't issue a building permit until both have been submitted. I know I'm kind of moving along on that one, but any questions specific to the village districts, changes to their?
No, just thank you.
In support of those changes, we also looked at how we can change site plan approval for our projects here in town. Now, what you see up there, you'll see it kind of looks like the text is jumbled. That's not a typo. That's actually how, when you pull up our PDF document online, that's how it looks right now. We're going to go ahead and fix that. But what we've done, if you'll notice under site plan, we've always had a site plan requirement. So when a development comes in, they always had to present a site plan, but who approves that site plan has been the question. This right here, if you see the letter D stands for decision. Who makes the decision on whether it meets the UDC? When you see an R there in that table, that stands for review. The PH for public hearing, just like we're having tonight. And then the A would be for an appeal. But for site plans right now, who makes the decision whether or not it meets the UDC intent? Right now, it's under the administrator or his designee. So from what I've gathered, being in this great community, is that, you know, the occupants that have been in my chair before have kind of had that discretion and had that decision-making authority. So moving forward in the revised table, I want to highlight what we've done is we've added a review for the administrator. We've added the review for P&Z, and then the decision for a site plan be council. So it would require council's approval. We also reflected that change for any plan developments. So plan developments were handled the same way. The staff approved it. Staff made the decision, but now we felt that it was more proper to return that to the community and its elected and appointed leaders, but also give the public an opportunity to kind of weigh in on how development proceeds moving forward. So the next section, any questions specifically to site plan approval? Okay, so now I mentioned that in your staff report, you'll notice that these proposed changes would pertain to residential, commercial, multifamily, townhome, village, plan development, and industrial sites over 250 square feet on a site development. That's the current threshold. So we're not talking about an infill lot. So when someone wants to just buy a lot and build a home on an infill lot, they're not going to have to present a site plan or anything like that. It's not talking about duplexes, but when we have a residential development, when we have a townhome development moving forward, not really anything in review, but moving forward, that will come to P&Z and council for approval on that. This next section here, we made some changes to Article 23 at the very beginning. It talks about site plan and zoning permits. So this is where it speaks where the site plan has always been a requirement. But what we've done, we're proposing is to strike subsection B, which speaks to a zoning permit. Zoning permit for building compliance and a zoning permit for use compliance. This UDC actually states that in addition to a building permit, the city was to be issuing zoning permits for building compliance and use compliance. To looking at what I've got, I don't think that's ever occurred, or I don't think the city has ever issued a quote unquote zoning permit. The zoning review, UDC compliance, land use review, that is a part of my review that I do, plan review when projects get submitted anyway. So we've struck this language because we felt it was redundant. That'd be another permit that staff would have to issue. I don't even have a permit application for a zoning permit, and I want to make sure that staff were in compliance with this requirement, and we're currently not. So I thought it best to just strike it. So, but I guarantee we're going to continue doing land use review and zoning compliance as part of the typical review that we do anyway. This next section here, that's what it's going to look like moving forward. So section C, subsection C has just been bumped up to subsection B. Lastly, site plan approval. So this is a new section, procedures, at the end of Article 23 that we've added, that site plans shall be reviewed by the administrator for zoning compliance. Site plans then be submitted to P&Z for review and a recommendation to council. Following that recommendation, site plan shall be forwarded to city council for consideration of approval. Any changes to an approved site plan again, shall be reviewed by P and Z and approved by city council prior to implementation. So traditional or before, when there has been changes to an approved site plan or a site plan that was approved by staff, those changes were okayed by staff. So moving forward, this is our proposal that how we think that we can fix that issue. It does create a little bit more review on our end, on staff's time. I'll create a new site plan application for that, and that'll be communicated to our developers and our builders when we have our pre-development meetings. Hey, before we go any further, the first thing we need to do is get the site plan squared away. And that's what I've got for you tonight. Happy to answer any questions on the matter. Oh, I do want to say that we did have a notice of public hearing. It was published, sent April 1st. It was published in the Star Telegram April 2nd of this year. The Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing last week on April 13th. They did recommend approval by a vote of 6-0. I do want to state that during that public hearing, we did have a P and Z member suggest that city council perhaps consider a 60-foot lot, 65-foot lot for the R4 district. But otherwise, they voted for the amendments as presented, the same amendments that are presented to you tonight. And again, thanks for the opportunity to present before you and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for all the work and the excellent presentation. We've been working with you over the last few months on getting this to this point. So I really do appreciate it. It's been a long time coming, and hopefully it will protect us from getting into what we currently have, and that will never happen again. Any questions for him until Councilman Degenhart?
Nathan, thank you for your attention to this. You've done a fantastic job. I do have one question regarding the text amendment itself. I don't know if you have it in front of you or not, but if you do, I'd ask that you draw your attention to page 7, section 10. Give you a minute to get there.
That the draft ordinance.
Yes. 10 on page 7. I'll read it. It says, any person, firm, or corporation who violates, disobeys, omits, neglects, or refuses to comply with, or who resists the enforcement of any of the provisions of this ordinance shall be fined not more than $2,000. Each day that a violation is permitted to exist shall constitute a separate offense. What I take issue with is the last sentence, because the way I read it, each day that a violation is permitted to exist shall constitute a separate offense. Well, if a violation is being permitted to exist, should therefore no longer be considered a violation. So the last sentence of that paragraph, I would like to re-examine, because I think it is a little bit too ambiguous. We could tighten up the verbiage there.
Okay. Perhaps city attorney can speak a little bit more to that, but what I will say to that is that's a pretty standard verbiage that is applied, I think, to all city ordinances, that if it's not enforced, that it would make it essentially be a Class C misdemeanor, and that range at 2,000 per day, that's pretty typical for any code violation or a zoning violation.
Again, it's not with the monetary amounts, it's truly the way the last sentence is written that I think is rather confusing.
Do you rather like the word allowed to exist?
Or perhaps it could say each day that a violation exists
I'm good with
shall
that,
constitute
too.
a separate offense, but by using allowed or permitted, it imbues that something is being signed off on as okay, and therefore the prior is not enforceable. That would be my argument.
I think that changes.
Violation of each, guess that can be a condition.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll make that a condition.
Okay.
Anyone else? No? All right, well, I'll take a motion. Oh, wait, we have to public hearing. Well, no, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna open the public hearing at 8:33, and we don't have anyone here to speak, so I will close the public hearing at 8:33, and I will now open it up to council to make a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the text amendment with a revision to section 10 on page 7, the last sentence to be amended to each day that a violation exists shall constitute a separate offense.
Do you have a second?
Second.
What?
James?
Motion
Second.
is second. And all in favor? I mean, yep, unanimous decision. Perfect. We are going to have executive session. I know, sorry. I know, I just heard, I got a little whisper in my ear. We need to go into executive session. I thought this was over, so I have to read all the pursuant tos, don't I?
The one.
Which one? The,
Consultation with attorney.
okay. All right, so pursuant to 551.071, consultation with the city attorney pertaining to any matter in which the duty of the city attorney under Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct may conflict with the Open Meetings Act, including discussion of any item posted on the agenda, legal issues regarding the Open Meetings Act. And we will go into executive session at 8:35.
Be quick.
We'll be quick.
What I do now. Taco Bell.
Already done all.
We don't have our, we don't have a record.
I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, Rayanne.